very quiet. We don't want to awaken her.
There's no way she's going to find out what happened to her. Are you?
Right next to you, dear.
It's simply dreadful if she found out what happened.
I wish it wouldn't worry so much. There's really no chance of her finding out. And even if she does, there'd be no great harm in it now, would there?
Oh, it all happened so fast, and it's just so... I feel I don't want to laugh or cry.
It is rather exciting when you think about it. And it probably never would have happened if I hadn't been attracted to that magnificent bridge overlooking that brook. If we had begun walking in that direction... One would never think.
I'm going to wake up to what happened to I.
Who is it? Who's there? Lurking in the dark. It's Grace and I, Hester. Only we weren't lurking. We were merely getting ready for bed.
Oh, you gave me a dreadful start. What are the lights? What time is it?
It's only a little past midnight.
I don't believe it. Where on this good earth have you been all this time? Oh, walking, just walking. One doesn't walk for so many hours. Has something happened? Oh, dear. Something has happened. I can read it in your faces. Dear, oh, goodness, oh, dear. I knew it. I just knew it. I shan't go to sleep until you tell me what's happened. I shan't lie down in that bed, nor shall I turn off these lights until I hear every frightful word. And I can tell when either of you fabricates, so it might as well be the truth.
I suppose there's no special harm in your knowing, as I, for one, have been elevated by the entire experience.
Oh, Abigail, you can't tell me what happened. Oh, I can cover my ears. I don't think I can bear to hear a single word.
Well, it all started when we went for a walk.
That much I know.
Grace and I walked all through this town, observing all the pretty little sights. It really is a most delightful place, Hester. You should see it for yourself. Such attractive streets, every one of them.
Will you get to the point?
Well, as we were looking everything over, much to our delight, we came across the quaintest, sweetest little street I think I've ever seen in my life. And all along the street were the nicest little houses, and well kept too. And the sidewalks themselves were made of cobblestones. And Grace and I are so fond of cobblestones, we continued walking along the street. But there was no sign at all to tell us the name of the street. So we kept looking for people who might tell us the name.
It couldn't have been that important.
Oh, but it was. Grace and I were really so fond of the street. Well, we knocked on the door of one of the houses. It was the biggest house we saw. And a large, heavy-set woman opened the door, and she gave us the funniest kind of look I think I've ever seen in my life.
She probably guessed you were tourists.
Anyway, I asked her the name of the street, and at first she didn't want to tell me. And so I asked her again, and then she told me. It's called the Bon Compagnie, the Street of Good Friends. And I said, that certainly is the nicest name for a street I think I've ever heard in my life. Certainly the friendliest, the Street of Good Friends.
It sounds perfectly wretched.
We thanked the woman, and we continued walking, looking up at all the little lighted windows on the street. And then we saw some men, and so we nodded and smiled at them, and they smiled back at us in the friendliest way you can imagine. And I said to Grace, they certainly have picked a most wonderfully descriptive name for this street, since I don't think I've ever seen such friendly men in my life.
Gil, don't tell her any more. Be quiet, Grace.
After the men said goodbye to us, and we were just about ready to leave the street, a policeman came up to us, and he was the friendliest policeman I think I've ever met. And he smiled, and when he smiled, his little mustache mustache seemed to smile too. And he looked exactly like Rudolph Valentino. Only a friendly sort of Rudolph Valentino, if you know what I mean.
Did you talk to him too?
Well, not too much at first. There really wasn't much time. I mean, don't misunderstand me. He was one of the friendliest policemen I've ever met in my life.
I never knew anyone could get arrested in such a friendly manner.
Who was arrested?
Why, we were, of course.
Esther, it's not like what you see in the motion pictures or anything. No fingerprints or anything like that. The policeman smiled. And he was so friendly when he arrested us. And the judge, he was even more friendly than the policeman. And when they spoke in English, they had the most divine Latin accent.
This is all some ridiculous joke. Stop fabricating. You're becoming very cruel.
Oh, but we're not fabricating. In fact, we had intended to fabricate in the beginning. But now I suppose you may as well know the complete truth.
So what was it? Some kind of atrocious mistake? Oh, I don't know if I want to hear another word.
Well, you see, Hester, Grace and I should never have walked along that particular street in the first place.
It wasn't a street for us, if you know what I mean.
I'm afraid I do not.
How can I explain this without offending you? Okay, Hester, the Street of Good Friends is a street for bad girls.
But they're really not bad girls. It's just that we keep calling them bad girls.
And all those nice little houses were respectably run brothels.
Oh my God!
So you see, Hester, we had no business being there in the first place.
Because we're not bad girls, and the only women permitted on that street are bad girls.
It's only a precaution the police have to take. The street itself is all very legal.
Good Lord, what did they do to you?
That was the most exciting part.
It really was. It was the most exciting part. Judge told us that the fine was 500 euros for any woman found on that street without a license for bad girlishness. We gasped, and the judge wondered why we were looking so grim, and we said 500 euros was a great deal of money for us. And besides, we couldn't be blamed for being on that street. We didn't know what kind of street it was in the first place.
And then the judge and the policeman and another man who didn't speak any English at all, the three of them began whispering together. And then the judge spoke to us again, even friendlier than before, and he said that he couldn't very well not fine us, since that would be illegal. But he was also very well aware that 500 euros was a good deal of money to spend.
Especially in one evening.
So this is what he suggested. Since a license to become a bad girl on the street of good friends costs only 50 euros, if we both bought a license, we could save 400